All right, here we go. It is Wednesday morning in New York City. It is the Boomer and Geo program from the Built Ford Tough studio. Boomer and Geo are out. They will be back on Monday as they enjoy a long, long holiday weekend. Yesterday, I had Al Dukes. He is now joined them on a long holiday weekend. So instead, we decided to go with Marathon Man himself. And to my left is none other than a guy who left me. You know, we used to be partners. We used to be summer partners, and not like Al and him, but you know, radio partners, I would say that. And he went to the big time, went to 10-2 with Brandon Tierney. But today he decided he would like to reunite. His name is Sal Licata. What's up, man?
Hi, Jerry. This is fun. We haven't done this in about a year.
That is true. Before you got the big time promotion.
The only time I used to hear this music was when I was parking after getting home after doing the overnight, or when I'd fill in with you, and then that went away for about a year, as you said. But it's nice to hear the music. Nice to be back doing a show with you today.
For one day.
Yeah, for one day.
I
was like, is this going to be a regular thing, boss man, or what? And by the way, I'm not opposed to it.
Well, we'll see. We will see.
But I don't know.
Wouldn't kill you to ask me once in a while, but that's okay. That's another story. So, you know, you came in here this morning a little while ago, and I said to you, you know, you got a lot on the table here. We got the Mets winning again and doing it in overtime, in extra inning fashion again. Yeah. You got the Yankees who they've really hit a bump in the road now. No worries in terms of where they're at in the standings, but you know, you want to win the division, they got to get going again, and they have not played really good baseball now in a while after being one of, if not the best team in baseball for a large majority of the time. But then there's also Hard Knocks, and I have to say that, and we will do the Mets and the Yankees coming up, I promise, and some other things from baseball that piqued our eye from last night.
It was nice to be able to get it all in. Like, I was worried about it. You know, like, oh, crap, I got to get up 4 a.m., 4:30. I got to get to bed. I want a good night's sleep because I got a long day tomorrow. But I got everything in. I saw Hard Knocks, the Mets, and the Yankees finish, and there is a lot there. Would you take a Hard Knocks, Jared? Did you like it?
A lot more than I thought I was going to. Matter of fact, you know, Al and I were talking about this the other day. You know, watch Hard Knocks? Like, no. Like, I don't have... You know, I'm already at a point where I've got DirecTV Stream, which is terrific. To me, it's the best streaming / cable service that's out there. I've got, you know, Netflix like everybody. I've got Paramount Plus. We've got YouTube Premium, which is great. I said I'm not doing the HBO thing. It's just it's enough.
I had to do it for not Game of Thrones. You know the other show, House of Dragons.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, well that one too. But no, just recently because we changed over as well, and I was like, I need to watch. My wife and I love House of Dragons, so I did it, and I did the cheaper one with commercials. It's really like they play an ad in the first minute, and then that's it the rest of the way. So I happen to have it for Hard Knocks. I probably would have gotten it anyway. Just I think like we need to. So you went.
Well, I was on the fence. I was like, you know what? I'm not into the Hard Knocks anymore. I've seen them all. Why am I going to watch this one? And I'm not going to lie. I heard Chris McMonagle talk about it, and within the first 60 seconds of him discussing it, I'm like, you know what? I got to watch this now. So I came in. I redid the subscription. So I get here early, and I was able to watch the entire episode about a couple of hours ago.
What time you go to bed normally?
Anywhere, no joke, anywhere between 7 and 11.
Wow.
It just depends on what's going on that night. So
rough. That's rough.
It ain't great.
No,
that's for sure.
So you watched it this morning?
I was back and forth on the Mets and the Yankees last night till like the mid innings, and then I passed out. I watched the end of both games in the last hour, so I feel pretty good about all three. So I heard C-Mac talking about it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna re-up the subscription to HBO Max. I did it. I watched it. Here was my take on it. A couple of things. Number one, the Saquon Barkley. No, let me rewind. The puzzle of the process of putting together the puzzle of what is an NFL roster is no longer about who the best players are. It is about the value towards the salary cap. Like watching, I mean, you saw when they had the board up and the salaries from 2023, then the player like salary projection to the age, to the production you're going to get.
Like we could get this guy for $2 million versus who could give similar production versus a guy who's going to give $14 million for, you know, better production, but is it really worth it? Yeah, I see what you're saying.
The one line I liked was when he said something along the lines of, do we go for the premier player or do we go for, and I'm paraphrasing, or do we go for the collection of good players?
Right, quality, quantity, the old adage.
And it, on one hand, I marvel at the job they have and how they do it. And I thought Chris Rossetti, the director of player personnel, I thought he I mean, he shined in that. I thought he's outstanding.
It's crazy to me how when we talk about New York sports, I think most fans or media, we always talk about Joe Shane, Shea Boldane. But you saw it on full display how much Shane relies on everybody else. The same thing with Brian Cashman and all those other organizations, whoever it may be. We pick on or talk about and focus on the general manager or the president of the baseball operations, when in reality, it's an entire staff. You're right. The secondary and third guys, they're having some significant input as well.
I mean, you had Rossetti and Brandon Brown, who's the assistant GM. They were a big part of this. And it was interesting, too, when they introduced Bowen as not introduce him, but when Bowen comes on as the defensive coordinator, and then he's going over in the room, there's got to be 30 people in there going over like his philosophy and what he wants and what they're trying to build when they were in that big conference room.
Right.
I mean, there's so many people involved in it. I mean, you have so many coaches.
The only thing about that, and by the way, I love them. Shane Bowen sounds great, and like his attitude, like the fact that the Giants hired him. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out. But I need edge rushers. I need guys who are going to get or pass rushers. Excuse me, not edge rushers. I need guys who are going to get to the quarterback. No. I mean, I could have told you that. I'm not a defensive coordinator. Hey, you know what you want? You want some guys who can get to the quarterback. I don't care if it's the edge, up the middle, help out sexy Dax. I mean, it's not really rocket science. Well, Shane, why don't you tell us what you want for your defense? Oh, it's that it? You want somebody who can get to the quarterback? Wow. All right, guys. Hey, did you take a note of that? Take some notes here. He wants a guy who can get to the quarterback.
Well, that's the funny thing about this is even when you're talking about, what type of offense you want to have, how about one that scores?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure that's league-wide. They want to score more points and do different things. But that, to me, was the first take, was how difficult it is with the money, how you allocate the money, with the cap, and then how you bring the players in. I thought the Saquon Barkley stuff was predictable, yet still interesting, because obviously you had at the end John Mara coming into the room. Right. You could see it bothered him that Saquon Barkley's not here.
Yeah. The one thing that I think stood out to me about Barkley was that Shane was, and it's not his fault, but clearly he was minimizing the value of running backs.
Agreed.
Okay,
100%.
I'm not trying to knock him or say anything controversial about Shane. But we kind of knew that anyway. Mm-hmm. But then, he doubted that Barkley or others would get what they ended up getting. The running back market went up this offseason somehow. Teams started to put a little more value on it, and he did not. And that's fine. I think he was right in saying what he did. We need help up front. We can't justify paying a running back, whatever Barkley's age is, however much money they're going to give him at this particular point with all the carries on his body, the wear and tear that he's had. So I understood it, but it was interesting to see it hit right from the horse's mouth right there with Shane basically minimizing the value of not just Saquon Barkley, but running back.
And that was Rossetti. I believe that was him that was sitting there on the couch when he said, "Are we sure?"
Yeah, he was the one who was like, "Or how do you know that somebody's not going to?"
Yeah.
He was right.
And give him $12 million or $11 million. And you didn't. And then obviously he did get it from the Eagles. We didn't get to in episode 1, they didn't have the one that was in the trailer when Shane's on the phone clearly with Barkley saying, "You're going to give us a chance," or whatever it was. Right. That was not in episode 1 where they put it in the trailer. Because clearly he hasn't left yet for Philadelphia.
Sorry, Jerry. I didn't understand the franchise tag and then trade him. That doesn't make it.
Well, my guess was, I don't know this. My guess was, as I was following along, franchise tag him, and if it doesn't go well, you trade him mid-season.
Because you're not. I thought it was in the beginning because they get something back for him as just opposed to losing him in free agency. Then they also talk about they don't want to deal with the stress of
trade. Lost 10 years off his life.
Yeah, I mean, good God. Just make a freaking decision here. Well, I mean, maybe if you traded them last year, fine. So then they end up letting. So it almost played out worst case scenario. Nobody, at least logical people, Giant fans might have been upset regardless, especially if they goes to the Eagles. But logically speaking, if you moved on from Barkley last year and traded from, it would have hurt. Rip the Band-Aid off and move on. Instead, you end up losing him for nothing, and he goes to Philadelphia. It turned out to almost be worst-case scenario.
One thing you just said, too, just prior to that, when you were leading into it, when you talk about the wear and tear on these guys.
Yeah.
This is the one thing I just don't understand about the whole wear and tear and the degrading of the running back. Now, you want to tell me the running back has been devalued because there's so much more talent out there? Fair enough. But what you said seems to come up over and over and over again. And what I can't understand is, why is it, not to sound like the old guy in the room, which clearly I am when I look around, why is it that in the 1990s and 80s, you had one premier running back that would carry the ball up to 30 times a game, every game, 16 games a year and into the postseason. And these guys would play into their 30s and be really productive. There was a line in the Hard Knocks where they were talking about Josh Jacobs when they were trying to figure out what they're going to do at the running back position. Yeah. And they're like, well, Josh Jacobs, year and a half younger. Yeah, Saquon's 27.
Yeah.
Like, he's 27. And he's not, and I know he is in everything back. I know he catches the ball to the backfield, but he's not carrying the ball 35 times a year. Like, when you look back to, really.
Well, that is an interesting point because Shane said the data shows it, right? There's a drop off after whatever, age 27. But is that data from the past, or is it in line with the way that it's going forward? Meaning that you're right, these running backs, nobody's carrying the ball 30, 35 times a game
than ever.
Yeah, well, that too.
It just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that O.J. Anderson, at the age of whatever the hell he was, 35 years old, was still running the ball 20 times a game.
Right.
Emmitt Smith was in his 30s, was still running the ball 30 times a game. And I'm not saying that they're the same back as they were when they were 23 or 24, but the production, the drop-off wasn't that sharp or that significant, and yet you're listening to them. It really does sound like and we know this.
Plus, there's less practices now and less contact, all that stuff. You would think more preserving the player.
And they're in better shape.
Yeah.
And yet, it certainly sounds like, as we have all thought from watching that too last night, you draft them when they're in college, you keep them for 4 or 5 years, and that's it. Move on.
Right. Can I tell you something? When I watch these Hard Knocks, every year I'm like, I've seen it. I don't want to get into it. It's different like last year with the Jets, obviously, and then this year even with the Giants. But every time, without fail, the music comes on, the voice comes on, and I see the inner workings of an organization and the team build. I love it.
It's cool.
It makes me want to be a part of that.
You've always said that.
I see it. I'm like, man, I'd love to do it. Even when you and I were doing games at Columbia, I just love the idea of being on a team, trying to build the ultimate goal and build the team. And it was really cool to get to see Joe Shane and everybody else with the Giants and get some insight with Mara and, see how that front office is working a little bit and to how they're, as he said, putting the pieces to the puzzle together on a team that they got to go out there and contend.
And not to parrot CMAC from this morning, but I did think one of the things he said, and he's dead on after watching this. And again, it's 45 minutes. I don't know what goes on there every day, but you did get the sense that all these cameras were from the bird's eye view. There weren't a lot of staged interviews. It really was like a look-in and promote for much of it. It does seem like, and maybe Wink Martindale was a problem, certainly sounds like he was, it sounds like this looks to be a very cohesive front office.
One thing that I will say that kind of turned me off to it, and now I'm going to be into every episode. I love it, and it's going to make me want to root for the Giants even more, but knowing going in and then seeing some stuff that you could see was either cut short or clearly edited, Giants have final say on this. So, like that, I'm assuming that's out there. I don't know. I just found that out at the 100th Giants anniversary, whatever Shane was on stage.
They can keep out what they want to keep out, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So if they said something that we would find juicy or something that some people would deem negative, they're going to cut it out.
Sure.
So you're not getting... I'm looking at it with a lens of saying, oh, well, that's interesting that they kept that in with Shane saying, well, Barkley's got, 900 carries on his body. And, I'm like, oh, that's interesting they kept that in.
You wonder what they left out.
Yeah. Well, then there was one clear edit where they're in the middle of saying something, Shane in particular, and they cut it off right as he was about to say something what I thought was maybe going to be a little juicy, and it got cut off. So just, we have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit that it's not a Hard Knocks thing. They don't have... The Giants have final say, I believe, to what is actually said and what's out there.
Yeah, and that's fine. It just, to me, though, was just a different look inside, and I don't know why it actually... I was intrigued watching it, and I will watch another one for sure.
Get you pumped for football season, too?
No, not yet, but I'm getting there. I mean, listen, we're 6 weeks away from preseason games, and the Hall of Fame games even sooner than that.
It did get me pumped up for football, but... Like tomorrow's 4th of July, I want to enjoy the summer.
I know. Well, and that's why you can't get crazy with it just yet.
And I saw Falcons Twitter account on Sunday to like 10 more Sundays. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
10 more Sundays.
Well, how about John Rothstein? And he does this all the time, every
with
day.
The March.
My God, 125 days to the start of college basketball.
That's
Whoa,
it?
Slow down, because college basketball means Thanksgiving. It means another year's gone.
Yeah,
really. I mean, that puts it in perspective.
Only 9 more Sundays, 9 more weekends without football.
And that's when you got 9 more Sundays for your wife not to hate you.
Yeah, really?
I know. It's
there are some benefits to that. Sorry, honey. Work. It's football.
That's a different deal for sure. And then the other thing quickly, and I know at some point we'll get into this too, they made it, hey, Rascona, can you do me a favor? Pull up the Only folder if you can. I think I put it in. This is towards the end. This pretty much is kind of, I think, a teaser for what the next episode might be, but more so what this giant season is going to be. Is that in there?
I got the top one.
All right, so listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That caught my ear and eye because now that's something they could have edited out.
Right.
Or do we have to go find somebody else? As if he didn't know or fans didn't know already that this is a monumental year, just like this past year was, just like the year before that one was, before that one. This guy's got I know they can get out of the contract, I think, after this year. But this guy's got a $40 million a year salary. And we're still saying, is this the guy or isn't he? 5-6 years into a career.
Well, let me correct you. We're not saying that. They're saying that.
Right.
And that is the biggest issue from there.
Really interesting.
He also, if he's evaluating Daniel Jones, then why would you give him $40 million? Which
so
also prohibited you from.
To be fair, prior to him saying that was the line, the best predictor of the future is the past. Yeah. He goes 2 major surgeries in 3 years. Yeah. And then it's like 10, 15 seconds later is when he says that.
Yep.
So it's not about the kid's got talent. We've seen that. The problem is he can't stay on the field.
Right, but Jared, the whole point of even the episode yesterday when it comes to Saquon Barkley and how you're building a team, it's about Joe Shane doing everything he can, and that's evidenced by what has happened. Now, in the episode, obviously, you're going back to, the offseason, February. So we've seen it play out in real time where the Giants are at. They've taken Neighbors, number 6, which is
clearly you saw in that episode.
You saw
really
it coming.
Wanted.
Yeah,
yep.
you saw it coming. And he's talking about building an offensive line because we need to do everything we can to protect Daniel Jones. It's all about Daniel Jones. I think that is Joe Shane's biggest mistake, and he's already made it. Like, they already signed Daniel Jones to the contract. And I know that they're not going to get fired anytime soon, Shane and Dable. However, Mara kind of, he might have forced the way a little bit with Daniel Jones initially.
Maybe.
But the idea that these guys would be here in now, 3 years and still looking at the same quarterback, they get to pick their own guy, that's a major problem.
Yeah, but you got to go back to why they signed him to the contract in the year it came off of and the playoff. I mean, there's reasons why they did that.
But he didn't prove he could throw the football even that year. He ran it all over the place, and now I'm not taking away because me, who's a Jones detractor, like he proved me wrong. He went out there, won a road playoff game. They had a very good season when nobody saw it coming. So, all
right, here's my question to that though, because a lot of people say that he runs touchdowns, he doesn't throw them. Why does it matter? I don't understand
because the
running's
not sustainable. To me, that's why it matters.
Maybe, but when you sit there, you're right because he's gotten injured. Some guys can run forever and they never get hurt. This guy is injury prone. So it is a problem, and he needs to be more of a pocket passer. I understand that point. But when we evaluate a season, no one ever totals them up.
Right.
Like, if I've got a passing quarterback that throws 40 touchdowns and has one quarterback sneak for 1, he's got 41, and I got another guy that threw 24 and ran for 17.
Yeah.
It's the same production. Health is different, and sustainability is different, which is probably more the problem why they need to make sure that he can keep him upright and that he can stay in these games. But then you go back to the way they structure the contract. Right. They don't have to keep him for the 4 years, which is why this year will be the year.
Yeah, that would be the number one thing that I would take away if I'm a Giant fan that would be very alarming is that they are all in this year on finding out what Daniel Jones is.
Yeah.
I don't know how many. I don't know how many times you're going to see it.
Well, because every time they think they're going to move on, he's played well.
Yeah.
I mean, that year that they beat the Vikings in the playoffs, that was the year, and the kid played out of his mind.
He also didn't have to give him $40 million a year.
I don't disagree with that.
I mean, that's another major issue. Yeah.
Franchise no one else was giving him that.
They could have figured out where they could franchise tag him and do something else with Saquon, maybe. Now,
well, that's what people thought was going to happen, if you remember.
Yeah.
He was going to get the tag, and they were going to sign Saquon.
Turns out they made a mistake. Because even Saquon got, a nice deal from Philadelphia where the Giants didn't think anybody was going to give him that. Running back was devalued, but you can't tell me you wouldn't want to have Saquon Barkley as a part of this team or that Saquon Barkley is hurting Daniel Jones in any way. The only way would be taking up the cap space to help you build outside of Daniel Jones, but you gave a lot of that to the quarterback who's not worth $40 million. So whose problem is that? That's not Barkley's fault. That's not, that's just Shane's fault. It's not like, oh, we put in a bad spot here. We got to build around Daniel Jones. Yeah, well, I mean, you gave him $40 million. Good luck.
Well, that's why I've always wondered that, too. Like in an NFL locker room, the quarterback, even if they're just average, makes ridiculous amounts of money. Do guys in that locker room that are better football players look across like, why is that guy make 3 times what I make?
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. 100% I would.
I do.
Don't we
need to get into specifics, but I do.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We're just getting started. It's Sal and Jerry in for Boomer and Gio. We'll come right back. We got Chris Lopresti to join us after this, and then we will get to the Mets and the Yankees, of course, throughout the course of the morning. Some other stuff in baseball. Sal and Jerry on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.